And God said, be thankful in all things. But could he really have meant in all things? Yes, I think he meant in all things. Even though there are certainly things that happen in everyone's life which make it almost impossible to be thankful for, especially while they're happening to you. Mr. Toastmaster, brothers and sisters in well-speaking, and welcome guests. It has been said that the best of times and the worst of times travel along parallel tracks and oftentimes arrive in a person's life at the very same time. Now, if you are foundationally a positive person, then you will tend to find the good in the bad things that happen. And as time goes on, the bad things that happen will be somewhat moved backwards in your memory, and the good is what you will retain. However, conversely, if you are foundationally a negative person, then you may tend to find the bad in the good things that happen, and those will be the elements that you will keep with you long term. It seems like there is no other time in our calendar year that brings about a mixture of emotions and feelings than Christmas time. Just last Saturday, I came home a little bit late and I was shoveling the driveway. It was about 10, maybe 10:30 at night, which is a little bit late for my neighbor, but I had to get the driveway cleared. And the snow at that time was falling in large flakes that were just silently wafting down to the ground. And it muffled everything around me. And it was just beautiful, the way it was glistening. I could see the reflection in the lights from the decorations across the street. And as I got about halfway down the driveway, it was about that time that I noticed that as I scraped the shovel across, and the dull sound of the shovel scraping across the concrete was being answered by another shoveler from around the corner. Almost in unique response, as I pushed the shovel, I could hear a shovel in response. But the snow made the sound muffled, like it was coming from a closed door down a long hallway. And then as I was listening, stopping what I was doing and listening to the other shoveler working solo, I happened to notice in the great distance a dog barking. And for just a moment, it took me back to the time when I was 9 years old, and it was Christmas time. Now, my family, on Christmas Eve, we would all get together, just the family, just my parents, my two sisters, my brother, and I, and we would exchange gifts that we had prepared and gotten for each other. And you know the kind of gifts, the kind that the parents wrap so enticingly, and then put them right out in broad daylight, right in front of you, under the tree, for 2 or 3 weeks to drive you nuts, while they make little chiding comments like, you're really going to be surprised when you get this one, or this one's really going to be special to you, but you cannot open it until Christmas. Parents think this is jovial fun, but to a child, this falls under the category of cruel and inhuman punishment. But as I look back, I can recall the anticipation to be nothing but great fun. Of course, the tables turn when children get older. Stubby fingers get longer and more nimble and quite adept at pulling back ribbons and peeling back edges of paper so they can reveal the treasure that's found inside, and then quite capable of closing the wound back up so that it was only discernible to the very most critical eye. Actually, those kind of exercises are great for building a child's self-esteem. It's a great sense of accomplishment when you can pull that off for the first time. But I remember Christmas Eve to be a special time. We'd get up on Christmas morning and we'd all rush to the living room, get in front of the tree to find out what Santa Claus had brought for the great finale. And then we would all get dressed up and we'd go to my grandparents' house where we'd have a gathering of the entire family, aunts and uncles and cousins and literally everybody. And I remember that particular year, you see, my grandparents lived on the 13th fairway of the Beloit Country Club golf course. So their backyard was literally covered in pines and hardwoods and rolling hills, which in the winters of my youth were always covered with snow. That year, the present I got from Santa Claus, the present that I wanted more than anyone else and anything else, was a pair of skis. Now, this wasn't an elaborate pair of skis with ski boots and bindings and high-polished skis and those things. This was just a couple of pieces of wood with a little curl on the front end of it. A little place was like sandpaper that you could put your galoshes, your regular go-to-school buckle-up galoshes. Everybody remembers they had those when they were kids. And there was a spring that went around the back of your shoe and another spring that went over the front of your shoe that kept the skis on. But to me, those skis were as high-tech as those that John Claude Keeley would have on as he raced down a hill through the slaloms, through the gates, working for another gold medal. To me, that's how special those skis were. And even though I had never had a pair of skis on before that day, I had practiced that so many times in my mind. I had lived through going down the hill and through the gates and so many times prior to that I really had no problem at all. And I was having the absolute time of my life. That is until my sister asked if she would be able to use my skis. Now when you get a gift, that special gift, the one that you've wanted more than anything else, you don't want to share with anyone, especially a dumb old girl. And when I was 9 years old, that's what my sister was. She was a dumb old girl. But my father had a way of expressing his thoughts with glances and looks. He could communicate through his eyes. And I knew from the glance that my father gave me that I better yield to this one and allow my sister to use those skis. Now, it is a well-documented, proven fact that 12-year-old girls are not near as coordinated as 9-year-old boys. So it created a lot of concern for me that first of all I had to make sure that those springs were attached properly, the skis wouldn't come off, and I had to go through instructions several times to make sure that no crisis happened during this experimental run down the hill with my prize present. And actually all the instruction was really for naught because my sister actually did a wonderful job for the first 15 feet. And then it was all downhill from there, no pun intended. But through the jostling one way and the other and leaning back, the last thing I remember seeing was my sister going face down in the snow and her red ski shooting up into the air. More specifically, both pieces of a red ski shooting up into the air. As quickly as the dream had been realized, it had been dashed. The skis were ruined. Now my grandfather caught the whole entire episode on his present that year, which was a Super 8mm movie camera. And 2 weeks later, when he got the film back from being developed, we all sat in his basement, spread out like a huge audience in front of a hanging sheet used as a projection screen, as we watched the end of my Christmas present. And we all laughed until we just plain hurt. And to this day, every time I think back on it, it brings a smile to my face and it makes me laugh inside.